Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. But in him, really, aren't we the ones who are blessed because of the events of this Holy Week, beginning on Palm Sunday? What a day it was today. I suppose for you the day's just beginning, but over on my side of the world, the sun has set. And I look back on the events of today and am amazed at what I saw. It changed my life. The day started like any other day. Yesterday was Sabbath. I woke up in the morning and tended to the animals. Did some chores around the place. I needed to go into town because this week is Passover week and we have to make our preparations. The day started like any other day, but something was different as the day went on. There was a buzz in the air. Something wasn't like all the other Passovers we've celebrated in the past. You know, pilgrims travel from hundreds of miles to come to Jerusalem for these holy days. I'm lucky. I just live a few miles from the city. But the crowds today, the voices, the things they were saying and the things they were doing, as I say, it was just unlike any other Passover I've ever celebrated before as I prepared and my family prepared. This morning I loaded up my donkey and I brought her colt along as well because I didn't know if I was going to have a little too many things in town where just one donkey could handle it, so I brought them both along and I made my way into the city. I tied them up to a post and went in to do my business, and it's lucky I wasn't in there for long because very soon as I came out, I noticed someone was untying them. I thought maybe they were common thieves, but the way they were acting, the way they were doing it, they were taking their time very slowly, nonchalant, as if just this is the way it was supposed to be. So I asked them, kind of dumbfounded, why are you untying the colt? You know what they said to me? The Lord needs it. Okay. Well, who's the Lord? Well, what are you doing? But you know what? Something inside of me said, this is okay. They weren't surprised by my question. They didn't act like it was strange that they were doing this, so I let them take them. But I followed. I followed at a distance. I wanted to see what they were going to do with those animals. Of course, I would be out a lot of money if they actually did take them. But for some reason, I trusted them. And I also wanted to find out who this Lord was they were talking about. So as I followed at a distance, eventually, I saw them take the animals and take off their cloaks and put them on their backs. And then one of them, in the crowd, got up and got on that colt. It had never been ridden before. But he made it look so easy, as if he had control. And as I'm watching this all unfold in front of me, the words of the great prophet Zechariah came to mind. Rejoice, daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, gentle, having salvation, riding on a donkey, on a colt the foal of a donkey. I wondered if this was just all a big coincidence, or if something was happening today unlike any other day. I continued to follow. I was able to sort of blend in with the crowd. The closer we got to Jerusalem, the more the crowds gathered. And as we were walking along, eventually, a guy almost ran me over. And he kind of tripped, and I kind of tripped, and he helped me. And he said, hey, well, my name's Bartimaeus. I didn't know who Bartimaeus was from Adam. I said, oh, hi, nice to meet you. He says, you know what, I was blind just a few days ago. But now I see you as clear as day. He told me how he was a beggar, just sitting at the gate, like all sorts of blind people sitting at the gate, asking for handouts. And he said he heard the voice of a large crowd coming toward him. And he asked someone, what's the noise all about? What's the big deal? And they said, it's Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth. He's coming. And you see, Bartimaeus said, I had heard that he'd done great things, that he was even able to heal the blind and the sick. So, with nothing to lose, I cried out at the top of my voice, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And the crowds told me to be quiet. They told me to pipe down, but I shouted all the louder, and he heard me. And he came over to me and he said, "Friend, what is it you want?" And Bartimaeus told him, "Lord, Rabbi, I want to see." And in words Bartimaeus never forgot, he told him, "Go, your faith has healed you." And his eyes were opened. Maybe there's something to this crowd following this Lord, this Jesus. Now here's a blind guy, blind, who now can see, and I continued to follow along, and I said, I want to learn more. And eventually I met this woman, and she said her name was Martha. And her sister Mary had been housing Jesus in Bethany. Martha told me her brother Lazarus had just died. I was about to express my condolences when I looked into her eyes and saw there was more to the story. So I let her keep talking, and she said how he had been very sick. And she knew that if Jesus could only be there, Jesus could heal him. But he didn't come, and he didn't come, and he didn't come, and eventually her brother died. The sting of death was very real. And Jesus finally got there, and Martha told him, "Lord, if you only would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died." And he told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies." And Martha said, "Well, I know that one day I'll see him again in heaven." But Jesus meant much more than that. He went to the tomb. He told them to roll the stone away even though he'd been in there for 4 days, and he shouted, "Lazarus, come out!" And burial cloth, linen strips, and all, out walked a dead man who was now alive, just because of the words of this Jesus. It was starting to make sense why the crowds were so big and the people were so excited. They had heard of the great things this Jesus had done, but now you have proof with your own eyes. You can talk to people like Bartimaeus. You can talk to people like Lazarus. And as I continued to follow, as the crowd and Jesus on the donkey, they winded their way through to the Mount of Olives and getting ready to descend into the city. They started taking their cloaks off, all the people, and putting them on the ground. And they grabbed palm branches and were waving them in the air. And they were shouting, "Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest." And I knew I was part of something special. That the things going on that day would be talked about for the rest of history. Of course, there were some who weren't real happy. The Pharisees, for some reason, didn't like this Jesus. And they were angry. They were visibly upset. And they went up to him and they told him, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." I don't know why. I don't know why they couldn't just enjoy the moment. I wanted this to last forever. They said, "Shut these people up." And you know what Jesus said? If they're quiet, the stones will cry out. And I believe with every piece of my heart, the stones would have cried out that day. Well, eventually it was over. The crowd dispersed. The voices were silenced. Everyone went home. So did I. And as I traced my steps back to where I began, I thought about the events that had happened and trying to piece together what it all means. The words of Zechariah, what happened with my donkey and its colt, the words of the crowd as they sang praises to this man. And I got home, and about an hour later there was a knock on the door, and here were the two men who had taken the donkey originally. They returned him, and they came in and sat down, and I had all sorts of questions for them. What's going on here? Apparently, they've been with this man for 3 years. And even they had some questions. And they told me that Jesus had just told them before they went up to Jerusalem, "We're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death, and will turn him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day he will be raised to life." That sounded kind of strange. why would he go then? But I guess a lot of things today have been kind of strange. Here's someone hailed as a king, not riding on a horse, but on a beast of burden. Here's someone hailed as a conquering hero with no army, just him. And I couldn't get out of my mind the fact that he knew everything that was going to happen before it ever happened. He knew the question I was going to ask. He knew my animals would be there. And I guess that means he knows exactly what's going to happen to him this week. That he will be betrayed and condemned and flogged and crucified. And the more I wondered why, the more God gave me the answer why. He's doing it for me and for you. For all the times we've been too busy for him. For all the times we would prefer for the stones to cry out because we don't want to. For all the times we've denied and betrayed him. He's doing it for us. And he did. He knew that without Palm Sunday there could be no Good Friday, and without Good Friday there could be no Easter Sunday. So he knowingly, willingly, lovingly carried out his Father's plan of salvation and died. And 3 days later rose again. Do you see why they were so excited? Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. But let's be honest. Aren't you and I the ones who are truly blessed? What a day it has been. A day I'll never forget. The day Jesus began the completion of his saving work. Amen.